the Arkansas corruption that we're seeing in the headlines has irritated, I think, a lot of people in the legislature who are not corrupt. Not everybody is. A lot of them, most of them, I would say, are not. But at the same time, I'm not sure most people recognize how bad the corruption really is. You know what I'm saying? A few of them do. I think people like Senator Terry Rice, Linda Collins Smith, Bill Sample, who called immediately for the resignation of Jeremy Hutchinson. I think they recognize how bad it is. And I also think that State Representative Grant Hodges recognizes how bad it is as well. And this letter, can you throw that up on the screen? Let's show everybody. June 18th, so this was a couple of days ago. Representative Grant Hodges calls for ethics and election reform. Quote, I believe it's time for the people's representatives in Little Rock to step up and take a hard look at making our state government more transparent and accountable. Joining us now, we have State Representative Grant Hodges on the line. Grant, welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, Paul. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'm really glad that you could come on, and I'm just wanted to give you a platform because I really think it's powerful that you're, calling for more transparency in our government. What do you have in mind?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about it. Really what I'm proposing or thinking through to maybe tackle this corruption issue that we're having, or at least offer some ideas, because I haven't seen too many ideas, at least for legislative changes. The first is one that some other folks have discussed already, is disclosure from our candidates and elected officials. So, just tightening that up and looking at what the federal government requires and what other states around the country require for their elected officials to disclose. I think we all know there are some gaps in our current disclosure system. If you're an attorney or if you're doing consulting or something like that, then it's pretty easy to mask how you're getting your income. Second is looking at how the state could improve our investigations and prosecutions of public corruption. So, my question lately has been, why does it seem like it's only the federal government, only the FBI and the U.S. prosecuting attorneys, U.S. Attorney's Office who's investigating and prosecuting these cases? Because it's not, public corruption is not just under the purview of the federal government.
Why do you think that is? Have you got an answer when you ask that question?
Yeah, the answer I've gotten so far seems to be that, really they seem better equipped with, our current law and the current way we're resourcing the state. So, the FBI just has resources that the state police maybe doesn't, or, whether that's manpower or equipment or maybe statutory authority. But really, Arkansas, we have public corruption laws on the books. We have a state police. We have state prosecuting attorneys, and they do work with the FBI, and in a lot of cases they're doing great work, and we appreciate it. But I think we need to look at maybe the state could step up our investigations and enforcement, because I'm not sure that we're really fully utilizing the resources that we have in the state to investigate and prosecute these kind of things. And so I think that's worth looking at, because I guess my feeling is, really in Arkansas, we're not really doing our share of the work, I guess. I would like to see the state really sort of step up and take a lead and say, we're not going to tolerate any more of this. Mm-hmm. And we're going to give our state the tools to investigate and prosecute corruption, so that it's not just the FBI and the U.S. attorneys that are handling these cases.
I think that's a really good idea, and I've asked the same question. Where is the state of Arkansas when it comes to this whole thing? And a lot of the new Senate ethics proposals has to do with members. I guess I'm going to use the word tattling on each other.
think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you guys out there. Wow, what a day yesterday was, the news cycle. I'm telling you what, Justice Anthony Kennedy announcing his retirement. It is a fantastic day. Some headlines are saying this is the day conservatives have been waiting for. I will tell you this, as somebody that went through the 8 years of the Obama administration, just like you guys did out there listening, this day is something to just certainly remark, to certainly recognize. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that thought this would never happen. There's a lot of people that thought, I mean, this is, I know once he appointed Gorsuch, okay, people said, you know, he's probably going to get to appoint another one, maybe two more. And you know, it's likely, but, you know, you don't count your chickens before they hatch, but here we are. And the left is just absolutely in a meltdown mode because they know what is at stake here. And it essentially is all of the stuff in the 20th century that where the Supreme Court altered in many ways the very fabric of our identity. If you'll just take Roe versus Wade, for example, one of my favorite theologians, Francis Schaeffer, in his book, How Should We Then Live? One of the things that he said was that in 1974, when the Supreme Court ruled that abortion was legal, that was the marker where we officially lost any form of Christian consensus in this country, that was the marker, that was officially saying no. Because, I mean, when you really come down to it, essentially what we've had with the 55 million babies killed since 1974, it's human sacrifice so that you can promote your own personal peace and affluence. And that's essentially what we've been doing since 1974. So the idea that you could put a conservative to replace Anthony Kennedy on the court means, I think, every state in the country, or every southern state in the country for sure, should pass a law outlawing abortion, knowing that it's going to go all the way to the court. I mean, you had CNN's legal analyst yesterday, Jeffrey Toobin, who lamented that in 18 months abortion could be illegal in this country. And that's exactly right. I think about where we were. I mean, think about that for a second. Think about that Supreme Court decision back in, I think it was 73, and then it started in 74. I can't really remember. You have to look that up. When was Roe versus Wade? Was it 73 or 74? The actual decision came down. Anyway, ever since that time, just think about the moral rot, the moral decay. Now, it had probably started before then, but in our society, I mean, just a slow, steady progression, just further and further down to, what was it? 73. So it was 73. So anyway, the phone number this morning is 870-275-9799. This is a huge day, mainly because what we talked about yesterday was how the media, has been lying to people, and they lie, and then they wait for an event to happen, and then they basically cash in on all the outrage. But people are actually operating based on a false premise. Their anger comes from a false premise. So that's we're going to talk more about that here in just a minute. At the bottom of this hour, we're going to kind of recoup everything that we lost yesterday because we had a phone outage, we had a lightning strike, so we weren't able to get our guests on. We have that problem remedied, so we will be talking with Mr. Tim Loggins about some interesting stuff coming up here at the bottom of this hour. Then at the top of the next hour, we're going to be interviewing the Alliance Defending Freedom's attorney, senior counsel. His name is Jim Campbell, and we're going to be talking about the Irene Flower case as well as the Supreme Court decision that essentially was a victory for freedom of speech, freedom of conscience when it comes to the pregnancy help centers not having to advertise for abortion. I got to tell you, the optics here are absolutely stunning. If you're a leftist, last week didn't go real well for you with the Supreme Court, and you're thinking, and these little Supreme Court decisions, they keep getting released because it's the summer, and that's what happens. Somebody writing on Facebook over at facebook.com/Conduit News, now Ginsburg can go too. Well, she's obviously next. I mean, she's not even conscious most of the time up there on the bench. I mean, people think she sleeps during the during the debates or during the the court. So the optics here, if you're a leftist, are just devastating to you because you have these Supreme Court decisions. They had one yesterday on the unions, basically giving people, blue-collar workers control over where their money goes. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And so you've gotten the first it was the cake baker, okay? Then the pregnancy resource centers. Then you have the florists, and that's referred back to Washington State Court based on the Colorado decision. And now Anthony Kennedy submits his letter of resignation, and so now you've lost all these cases at 5-4 because of Kennedy. And now what else are you going to lose? From their standpoint, I mean, this is absolutely Armageddon from their standpoint. And people think anyway, it's by the way, the next time somebody says to you that Arkansas judicial elections are nonpartisan, number one, or need to remain nonpartisan, I want you to think about this moment. This moment. This moment demonstrates that claim is preposterous and ridiculous. Judicial elections, whether you're appointing or whether you're electing, judicial philosophies are political ones. There are two ways to interpret the Constitution. You either do it based on what the words actually mean and what they meant, or you say, well, we're going to have an evolving law that is unpredictable depending on how many decades we are away or out in the future from when it was actually written. The number 870-275-9799. 870-275-9799. Amy on Facebook, all across the nation's leftists' heads are exploding. Yeah, that does tend to be what's happening. There was actually a leaked DNC conference call. Joe, go ahead and play this. I have this pulled up there. Dems meltdown over Kennedy retirement. So the DNC Rules Committee was on a live conference call when the news broke that Justice Anthony Kennedy would retire at the end of July. And this is the horror that ensued. I had to listen to this like 5 times, wanted to make sure no one, dropped an F-bomb or anything. But listen to this.
Justice Anthony Kennedy has just announced that he's retiring. All the more reason. Yes. He just announced this. CNN, NBC. Oh my God. Got it. Organized. This is not that he's done us any good on these recent, not that he's done us any good on these recent decisions, but he was the one occasionally persuadable.
Oh, the humanity.
This is not good news. But anyway.
So that was the, I guess it's not a leaked conference call. It's just, they were broadcasting it live. Then you have this liberal meltdown. Let's go to the Daily Caller article, Joe. Liberal activists and journalists are melting down over Justice Anthony Kennedy announcing his retirement. You see some of these tweets we can't read on the air? Progressives immediately reacted to Kennedy's retirement with fear, anger, and sadness. Somebody writes, for starters, abortion rights are more imperiled now than at any time since Roe versus Wade. You know what the state of Arkansas needs to do? We need to pass a pro-life law, and then we need to encourage and support the Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge, to defend it all the way to the Supreme Court. I know it'd be a big case, but that's exactly what needs to happen. That's exactly what needs to happen. Our Arkansas Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge, needs to be on go with this. The entire state legislature, I challenge you guys. I know we are pro-life. I know this is something that we're supposed to all agree on, and it's been a low-hanging fruit issue for a long time. But with the replacement of Anthony Kennedy, assuming that Trump picks somebody along the same caliber as Neil Gorsuch, we all need to be on go here. We need to take advantage of this because this is about one thing: saving human lives, period. Let's all get on that bandwagon, right? Sign me up. We have other... Let's see, here's Al Sharpton. We have no choice but to organize, strategize, vote, and act. Ambivalent attitudes are not an option. All civil and human rights are at stake. What side are you on? You know what I think about this? Human rights. Think about that. Everybody thinks Roe versus Wade is going out the window. I mean, there's no way to know that for sure, obviously. But when you listen to Maxine Waters talk about the children, when she's telling people to essentially, when they see a Trump cabinet member, form a mob and go confront them, and they're talking about the children. When you hear Hillary Clinton quote the Bible about children trying to make Donald Trump look bad for just enforcing the law and, that sort of thing, I think to myself, do these people even know the policy they support when it comes to a human being inside of a mother? That they are actually advocating, the Democrat Party, what is essentially slavery, modern-day slavery today, in terms of the argument the Supreme Court had back in the day, which was who is a person under the Constitution and who is not a person under the Constitution. And the Democrat Party draws an arbitrary line in the sand and says, you are in the womb of the mother, therefore you are not a person, just like the Supreme Court at one time said, because of the color of your skin, you don't have standing. You don't have rights. You're not a full human being under the Constitution. And the Democrat Party is still on the same side of that issue. And they talk about children. Let's see here. How very cool of Justice Kennedy to pour kerosene on the current dumpster fire that is America. The Roe versus Wade riots should provide fine entertainment for him in his retirement. So they're saying there are going to be riots if they do away with abortion. Can't read that next one on the air, according to FCC regulations. We have Elaine Atwell. I don't know who some of these people are, but apparently they're leftists. Yeah. Oh, they're verified. Yeah. We may have just left the point at which we could rely on democratic norms to fix our government, and now are on the road to literal revolution. Hashtag Kennedy.
And you know what? On this revolution, we will win because they're a bunch of...
Okay, so I'm listening to Joe in here. He's getting excited. I actually, on this idea, this morning in my email inbox, I was contacted by, it's like a media arm that was, that has interviewers that are advertising for potential interviews. And there's a gentleman by the name of, I think, Julio Rivera, and they were saying this, you need to interview this guy because he actually has a book out that's about the coming riots of the left and how now that you have, I don't know if it's a book, but maybe it's some publication, some writings on a website. I think that's what it is. And he was talking about how basically the last half of the summer may be a summer of violence because of what the left's going to do. I mean, Mitch McConnell says they're going to vote on the Supreme Court nominee in the Senate this fall. I think they should do it immediately. I really do. I think they should do it immediately. I think as soon as Trump nominates, I think they need to get the 51 votes together. I think Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, didn't he vote for Neil Gorsuch last time? I think that he did. If he has a chance, if he wants to get reelected as a Democrat, you would assume he would vote for the Trump nominee again. We'll see. And people are really, really worried. I saw this on the front page of a tabloid that Judge Jeanine Pirro may be on the short list. Also, Senator Mike Lee may be on the short list. This has got the left really upset. Another one, Justice Kennedy is retiring. Another leftist. Well, America, it was nice knowing you. I mean, I just want to let you know, these people think that it is the end of the country as they know it, and it's really only about one thing. Now they're going to say it's about gay marriage. I wouldn't expect for them to revisit that. I mean, they might. If here's the thing: if you're an LGBT activist or whatever, if a conservative court ever actually revisits gay marriage, it will be to say that government has no business verifying lifestyles in the form of marriage or anything else at all. Now, it would require probably to look at our tax code all over again, because of filing jointly and that sort of thing. But essentially, the government shouldn't be in the business of marriage anyway. But there are LGBT activists that say, well, my marriage is over now because Anthony Kennedy is retiring. We got to take a break, folks. Interesting times that we live in. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
Bob Maloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a Blue Ribbon Task Force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a Blue Ribbon Legislative Task Force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who is deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so those of you driving right now, I don't know if you're in the left lane by yourself in the left lane, but apparently the Arkansas State Police, they want you to move over if you're in the left lane because they have nothing better to do than to remind you that you can't just hang out in the left lane. Apparently that's illegal now. The left lane is for passing only. You have KATV with this report. You're holding up traffic. You should be more considerate, is what some people are saying. Corporal Liz Chapman with the Arkansas State Police adds that cruising in the left lane is illegal. Arkansas law states you cannot continuously operate a motor vehicle in the left lane of traffic. Why are people driving in the left lane of traffic? What do you think? Go to the KAIT article next. Why are people driving in the left lane? Because the right lane will destroy your suspension. That's why. Because we don't have money for roads. Because we spend too much money. We have too many obligations, and we can't fund our roads. And the state police are essentially reminding you that here's one more reason they can pull you over and harass you. That's the way I feel about it. I'm sorry. Mark West, I'm not the only one. Libertarian candidate for governor, Mark West, he went to Facebook and he said this: if I'm elected governor, I'll make sure our state police have something better to do than harass folks for driving in the left lane. That's right. And people challenged him. They said, but, if you're impeding traffic and that's it's one thing if you're driving 60 miles an hour in the left lane. Okay, we got it. Yeah, you're not supposed to be doing that. But a lot of people camp out on the left lane, because the road is smoother over on the left lane. And especially if you're up to speed, and you're the only car on the road, what difference does it make? If you're not impeding traffic. By the way, but don't drive in the right lane if there's an emergency vehicle on the side of the road, though. Then you're expected to get into the left lane. It's okay to get into the left lane then because there's an emergency vehicle on the road. But so which way do you want it? Yeah. It's ridiculous. Mark West, in the comment section, the Libertarian candidate for governor, he goes, the point is, I believe we have much more important societal functions for our police than to have them sitting in a patrol car on the side of the highway. I completely agree with that statement. Not to mention, I don't think they should have these sports cars to try to catch speeders, to blend in. Because what if I need a police officer? Like what if I need to see the marked police officer so I can get help? I think unmarked vehicles. If you think driving in the left lane's illegal, well, unmarked police cars on the highway should be illegal if you're just catching speeders. Not if you're undercover, but if you're just there to catch speeders. Back in a minute.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Getting your income. Second is looking at how the state could improve our investigations and prosecutions of public corruption. So, my question lately has been, why does it seem like it's only the federal government, only the FBI and the U.S. prosecuting attorneys, U.S. Attorney's Office who's investigating and prosecuting these cases? Because it's not, public corruption is not just under the purview of the federal government.
Why do you think that is? Have you got an answer when you ask that question?
Yeah, the answer I've gotten so far seems to be that, really they seem better equipped with, our current law and the current way we're resourcing the state. So, the FBI just has resources that the state police maybe doesn't, or, whether that's manpower or equipment or maybe statutory authority. But really, Arkansas, we have public corruption laws on the books. We have a state police. We have state prosecuting attorneys, and they do work with the FBI. And in a lot of cases, they're doing great work, and we appreciate it. But I think we need to look at maybe the state could step up our investigations and enforcement because I'm not sure that we're really fully utilizing the resources that we have in the state to investigate and prosecute these kind of things. And so I think that's worth looking at because I guess my feeling is really in Arkansas we're not really doing our share of the work, I guess. I would like to see the state really sort of step up and take a lead and say we're not going to tolerate any more of this. Mm-hmm. And we're going to give our state the tools to investigate and prosecute corruption. So that it's not just the FBI and the U.S. attorneys that are handling these cases.
I think that's a really good idea, and I've asked the same question. Where is the state of Arkansas when it comes to this whole thing? And a lot of the new Senate ethics proposals has to do with, members. I guess I'm going to use the word tattling on each other, and the idea is like that they are going to police themselves. They are going to grade their own papers. That's kind of. I don't know why that's not happening now. I mean, I know they want to do something, but I kind of am skeptical. Why hasn't that happened now? There's nothing stopping many of these people from going to the Ethics Commission right now, and that hasn't happened. You talk in your letter, we're talking with State Representative Grant Hodges from District 96, and that's out of Rogers, right, Grant?
Yes.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back. This portion of Conduit News Radio is brought to you by the Patriots of Act 746. They're on a mission to educate the citizens of Arkansas about your gun rights, specifically permitless carry, open carry, constitutional carry. And welcome to the program, back to the program. We've got Mr. Tim Loggins with the Patriots of Act 746. Tim, thanks for coming on, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, Paul. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning to you. Folks, if you want to be a member of the Patriots of Act 746, you have to request to be a member on their Facebook page. It's very simple. Go to facebook.com and search for Patriots of Act 746. And it's a growing sensation. I mean, since you guys have been coming on the program, we've been talking about this, Tim, the page and the group has really grown by a couple thousand people.
The main page is approaching 14,000 now. I looked last week. We're probably growing close to 5% a month. So it's a pretty good growth rate. Yeah,
no, absolutely. That is a good growth rate. So, Tim, I wanted to have you on because we talked to our friend Dan Borum last week about the Attorney General's opinion in the response to Senator Linda Collins Smith's request for an opinion. And I wanted to get your take on it. This had to do with whether or not there is a penalty in the law for carrying a weapon without a concealed handgun permit. And the Attorney General says that there is no penalty in the law, and that's what Senator Linda Collins Smith, that's why she wrote the letter asking for the opinion. But then the Attorney General goes on and really muddies the water, in my opinion. I want to get your reaction, Tim Loggins.
Well, I think she did very well in her first two sentences, and then it was pretty much trash after that. Little background, Paul. Senator Linda Collins Smith made this request for an opinion on January 3rd, so it took almost 6 months to answer. And I'm pretty sure that the opinion was written for months prior to the release. And actually, the only reason it was released that I can tell, there was a group of legislators that were signing a letter to the Attorney General and told her so, that they want that opinion released, and that's when she released it. Last time I was on the show, I said I was going to reach out to some representatives and see if they could make that request, and they were doing that. And she did finally respond to other legislators and release the opinion. Her first two sentences were good. There is no penalty for carrying concealed without a permit. But you got to remember there was two questions asked, and she didn't answer one of those. Senator Linda Collins Smith asked what law mandates a concealed carry handgun license to carry concealed, and what law has punishment in it. She only answered half of that. There is no law either, Paul, that requires a permit. And she needs to answer that.
Now, okay, this is new. This is new analysis. We actually haven't heard this point, that she did not answer the question of what law requires you to have the permit. So you're saying that law doesn't exist. She didn't answer that question. Boy, if she had responded in that letter saying that there is no law requiring, I mean, can you imagine?
Well, Paul, that's why she added the other 6 paragraphs, was trying to manufacture a law that doesn't exist. She said in there several times that you may be cited, or you may be stopped, or you may be arrested, and she was very, used carefully crafted language without actually answering Senator Collins Smith's question. There is no law. If there was, she would have cited it. Now, she fell back to 573-120 and tried to convolute that, Paul, to where it would fit the answer that she wanted. Let's be honest. The Attorney General is not in favor of constitutional carry. And constitutional carry means you don't need a permit to carry open or concealed. She's in favor of the permitting scheme.
Well, didn't she say, I mean, but in her, I'm just, being devil's advocate here, at the bottom of the opinion, though, she did state her personal opinion down there. How do you marry those two?
Well, I'm going to bring up something new on that, Paul, and I'm glad you asked. The bottom of her opinion, she has a footnote that says that the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms must be honored, and that the state of Arkansas must allow open carry, or it must allow permitless carry, or both. Now, what she did with that portion of her opinion is she actually opened up a can of worms, because that would make the enhanced carry unconstitutional.
Yeah, that's a good
because
point.
You're allowing citizens that pay for the right to carry in places that your average citizen can't. So by her very opinion, she actually knocked enhanced carry. So I found that interesting as well. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, well, I just I think this is to me it's a political opinion. It's not really one that reflects, I think, what the law says. She did, we did get part of a concession. It's very similar to the 746 opinion that she issued the first time. We got a little bit of ground there by her saying, yeah, you can open carry. But then there was that other nonsense in there but if a police officer, if you're walking funny, a police officer gets to basically, ask for your papers and that, you know what I mean? So you got a little bit, but then it wasn't as clear as it needed to be. This makes it a little bit clear in terms of that, no, there is no penalty if you carry without a concealed handgun license, but then it gets muddier again. And so it's kind of like this ebb and flow where they just don't want to admit what the law says and what the people's rights are. And that, to me, is very frustrating. And I want to get your opinion, Tim Loggins, on the part of her response where she says that, you know, the law requires if you're guilty of possession of a weapon, they have to be able to prove, the government has to prove that you were carrying that weapon with the purpose to unlawfully employ, with the intent to unlawfully employ that gun or weapon against another person. And she claims that the government might argue if you were to carry a weapon without a permit, that because you're carrying a weapon without a permit, that is proof of your intent to unlawfully employ it against another person. And I find that to be preposterous. How could you claim that that would be the intent to harm someone else? You may have an intent to not have a concealed carry license and not pay the Arkansas State Police. I mean, essentially what she's saying is not paying the Arkansas State Police their money means that you're going to do something bad to somebody else with your weapon. That is a stretch, but that's what she argued in her letter.
Well, I'm going to digress a little bit and say this was a political opinion, not a legal opinion. Let's be very clear about that from the start. And as far as the question you just asked me, I would refer the Attorney General back to U.S. v. Black in the 4th Circuit and also to the Duffy case in the 8th Circuit. Both of those were decided in 2016, and both of those said the presence of a weapon is not grounds for police officers to stop you, detain you, arrest you in a constitutional state like Arkansas. And by the way, the Duffy case is in the 8th Circuit, which Arkansas is part of. So the Attorney General's original opinion written in 2015 concerning Act 746 and her reference to it in this opinion are both incorrect according to the 8th Circuit. It's not probable cause or reasonable suspicion because someone has a weapon to stop them and detain them or to even ask them why they're carrying, because we have a right to carry in Arkansas. So she's wrong on the citations she made, and I think she knows that. That's why she didn't cite them in her opinion.
Wow.
The 8th Circuit's clear. The 4th Circuit's clear. There's an opinion in the 5th Circuit that's very similar. If I can do that looking on LexisNexis and Google, I'm quite sure that the attorneys down there in Little Rock have better access to these cases. So they know what the law is, and they know what the case law is. And I want to point one more thing out, Paul. She made reference that the Arkansas Supreme Court precedent, but she didn't list what those precedents were, may rule against you for 573-120 violation. There hasn't been a single case since Act 746 in 2013 that's went to the Arkansas Supreme Court. I'm just going to call some AG and say you need to stay in your lane and quit trying to legislate from the Attorney General or the executive side. Let the legislators legislate and let the courts decide based upon the law. And she did neither of that. She made a political appeal to the legislature to change the law. That's really what that opinion was about. And it was disingenuous at best.
Yeah, and when we talked to Senator Linda Collins Smith earlier in the week, that's kind of what she said when she, in the letter, said that the legislature needs to make this more clear or whatever. And I'm very scared at that prospect because I think that the legislature will take away our rights. Right now, I mean, was the law written, even though they may not recognize it, but as the law is written, again, we have the prosecutor proof, meaning the prosecutors are not taking people and actually pursuing these charges if you do get arrested because they see what the law is and they say they can't get a conviction out of that because there's no way they can read somebody's mind and know while they were carrying they had evil plots to do something to somebody else. And so they're dropping all of these charges. We just need our elected officials to recognize what the reality of the law is. And the reality is that possession of a weapon on or about your person has been decriminalized. And that's a good thing. Isn't that a good thing? Don't we as conservatives believe that people have the human right to self-defense?
Well, absolutely, Paul. And I kind of laugh whenever, I saw the Attorney General saying the legislature needs to clear this up. I've reached out to dozens of legislators, senators, representatives. Everyone I've spoken to recognizes that we're constitutional carry, and that's what Act 746 did. They know the meaning of the law. They wrote it, and they haven't acted upon this clarification the AG's requested for 2 complete sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes their intent very clear. If there was any confusion in the law, they would have addressed it. By not addressing it, that means that they're happy with the result, and they know what they did when they wrote the legislation.
Yeah.
I want to go back to like President Obama, whenever he started breaking out his pen and his phone with executive action because he didn't like what the U.S. Congress wasn't doing. Well, Madam Attorney General, that's no reason just because you don't like the law to say it's unclear. We asked you an opinion on the law, not your political opinion. But I do appreciate that she answered part of the question.
I do too.
There is no penalty for carrying concealed.
Yeah, there is no penalty for carrying a weapon without a permit. I mean, that she did answer that question. There's nothing in the law that explicitly says what that is. We're talking with Tim Loggins from the Patriots of Act 746. Now, Tim, normally we do these segments on Wednesdays. This is Thursday. Next Wednesday is the 4th of July. We're not going to speak to you. And so I wanted to just ask you a few questions about, the Second Amendment and the American Revolution. I mean, it's that kind of a broad question, but if it wasn't for firearms, the people would have had no means to resist the most powerful military in the world at that time. And there was even one battle that was specifically about gun confiscation. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Paul, it wasn't just one battle. It was the first battle of the Revolutionary War. When I was in school, and I'm kind of old, but they still taught about it, but they're not teaching it anymore. And I'm talking about the Battle of Lexington and Concord. As kids, we remember Paul Revere, in his famous ride, "The British are coming," and "One if by land and two if by sea." That's referencing the Battle of Lexington and Concord, which happened on April 19th, 1775. And just to cut to the chase, the British were marching on Concord and Lexington to confiscate guns. It was over gun confiscation that the first battle of the Revolution was fought, and without guns, we wouldn't be a free people right now.
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit more background, in 1774, the British had enacted a permitting scheme that the only way to import guns or powder was if you had a permit. That sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
The thing is, they weren't issuing any permits. So in effect, they used the permitting scheme to effect gun confiscation. And that's a lesson that we need to be teaching our fellow citizens today. We fought a Revolutionary War, the first battle over gun confiscation and gun control. Our founders were smart enough to realize that without the means to defend themselves, they would be subject to tyranny. And that was the start of the Revolutionary War.
Wow. Yeah, especially I would love for a history class to get into what you just said about the permitting process. How, okay, we're going to permit. You have to have a permit in order to, ship in the gunpowder and that sort of thing. But then they just don't issue any permits, and so there you go. Then they basically control the supply, and they keep the people dependent on the British. I'm thankful that our founding fathers had guns. I mean, that's the whole enchilada right there. If they didn't have the means to fight, we wouldn't have been able to fight. I mean, it's pretty simple.
That's what it's all about. When it comes down to it, Paul, that's why we're educating and fighting every day, because we know our history. We know the importance of firearm possession. It's a right, not a privilege. If you must pay a permit fee, it's a privilege, because they can control who gets it and who's allowed to have them. That's the bottom line. Permitting is gun control. And thank goodness in Arkansas, we don't have to have a permit to keep them bear arms.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Tim Loggins with the Patriots of Act 746. Sir, you have a fantastic 4th of July celebration, or Independence Day celebration, I should say. And we will talk to you and do this again soon.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yes, sir. Tim Loggins, everybody. And again, that's the Patriots of Act 746. You just go to Facebook. You type in Patriots of Act 746. Ask to be a member of the online sensation today. We'll be back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Coming up at the top of the next hour, we're going to be talking with a senior attorney, senior counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom. They've had a lot of victories out of the Supreme Court in the last couple of weeks. Mr. Jim Campbell will be with us, and we're going to talk about the Arlene Flower case as well as the case that really liberated pregnancy help centers across the country not having to, well, in California specifically, not having to advertise for abortion services when they're there to, you know, because they are there because they disagree with abortion. We'll be talking with him. Then at the bottom of the next hour, conservative future, young conservative, Arkansas Politico, Ken Yang. I tell you, when our phone lines went out yesterday because of the lightning strike, had a lot of people text me being like, man, I was really looking forward to hearing Ken Yang on the program. Yeah, I am too. And that's why we rescheduled him. He's got a fantastic perspective. You know, we're going to talk about his parents immigrating here. We're going to talk about how does he feel in the context of all of the demagoguery when it comes to the illegal immigration and people actually trying to step up and do something about it. So he's really got a great platform to talk about that. We'll certainly get into that. The phone number to call or text is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. The left is, again, in meltdown mode. I'm telling you, with the retirement announcement of Anthony Kennedy, the left is just in a tailspin. And it is... I mean, is it wrong of me that that it's fun to watch? Is it wrong of me? I mean, part of me. Okay, so for the ideologues that really are more Marxist, they know what Marxism is and they want more of it. okay, it's fun for them. But for a lot of people that have been lied to, and for a lot of people on the left who just they take what CNN says as gospel, and they're blind, and they're in many ways, I think, brainwashed. It's kind of not fun to see some of those people, the average person that's maybe not verified on Twitter, that is listening to all this and is just continuing to remain blindfolded and just believe everything like this is the way the world is when it's really not. In that context, it's actually quite sad. It's actually quite sad. So, but at the same time, I'm a human being, and it's kind of, it's kind of hard not to gloat. I mean, especially when they say, well, you guys held up Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland should have been the Supreme Court justice to replace Scalia, but Mitch McConnell, you didn't allow. And so now Chuck Schumer's saying, you already set the precedent. You can't vote on a Supreme Court justice during an election year. And you need to wait until after the midterms. Well, here's the thing, and I said this yesterday, but the response is quite simple. Mitch McConnell was able to hold up the confirmation of Obama's Merrick Garland because Republicans won elections. And so that's why he did what he did. And Republicans are still in the same situation, and they're still in control. And so guess what? If the Republicans want to use the power they have now that they didn't want to use then, again, because they won elections, then they are perfectly able to do so. And they are perfectly empowered to do so. And that's exactly, I'm sorry, you're not going to get any sympathy from us when we have had decision after decision after decision over the decades that have moved this country further to the left based on jurisprudence. We are tired of it. We're sick of it. If you don't think, and listen, this is all assuming that they nominate the right person, but if you don't think that the right in this country is going to take advantage of Anthony Kennedy's retirement and Ruth Bader Ginsburg's as well, whenever that's coming, I mean, you guys would do it, and don't think that you wouldn't. If the Democrats were in the same situation that the Republicans are in now, they would move at lightning speed to do the exact same thing. And again, I know you didn't think Hillary Clinton was going to lose, but she did. Donald Trump won, and these are the consequences. That's what the left told us when Obama got to nominate and confirm Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan. That's what they told us, right? Elections have consequences. Obama won. This is your Supreme Court justice. Well, elections have consequences. The same thing goes. Let's see here. What else do we have? Some of your Facebook comments. We're broadcasting over at facebook.com/Conduit News. Facebook.com/Conduit News. Okay, this is interesting. Most of those people are followers on CNN and others. They need to attach to a group. They can't stand alone. Personal low self-esteem. Many join groups for the same reason. That's a very good point. That's Levita. That's a good point in terms of how we behave. I think human beings can be really dangerous in groups because they will excuse bad behavior and they will lower the moral bar. I think that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen at the Marble Palace. Look, I know we were just talking about Leslie Rutledge in the last segment and our disappointment with her opinion in response to Linda Collins Smith. But yesterday, the Attorney General did announce that her office is forming a public integrity division within its special investigations department that will look into and prosecute corruption cases involving public officials. And so I certainly think that is a good idea. As a matter of fact, I believe it was State Representative Grant Hodges that came on the program the other day and talked about, this was one of his ideas, that the Attorney General needs to investigate the appearance of impropriety and corruption at the public level. Leslie Rutledge in a press conference yesterday saying she's going to do just that.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Okay.
Right.
So you talk about in your letter permanently changing the system, and I think that's a really good goal. You say too often our policies are reactive and a whack-a-mole approach. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I actually started writing this back in February. I pulled it up the other day, and I started writing this back in February. And so, yeah, it's not a reaction to anything that's recent. Obviously, things have been happening lately, but too often in the legislature, we just sort of respond to the issue of the day. We're not really trying to think more long term. And so I know, some folks think, well, these cases are being caught. These bad actors are being caught, and they are being prosecuted. They are being punished, and that's true. A lot of these are. But there's probably cases that aren't being caught, and the fact is, it does keep happening. So, we may not ever be perfect. There will always be people who don't follow the rules, don't follow the law. But I think we need to ask ourselves, how do we look longer term and say, how can we prevent this from happening in the future? Or how can we be better equipped to respond to it than we are now in the future? And so that's what I'm trying to look at. And I say in the letter, I think we need to look at maybe the state attorney general being involved here, maybe having a public corruption unit in the AG's office. I know I've looked around. It seems like the majority of other state AGs have a public corruption unit, and that would give us another set of eyes for this sort of thing. And then lastly, in the letter, I talk about potentially instituting recall elections in Arkansas.
That was my favorite part, and yeah, maybe it's because I have a few in mind that I would love to recall, but so has that one gotten any pushback? I mean, if the Arkansas General Assembly were to actually pass a law that made recall elections of themselves possible, that would be, that'd be a big deal. I would give them kudos if they did that.
Yeah, I think of what I'm proposing, that's probably going to be the toughest one, and it could end up having to be a constitutional amendment. I'm going to have to look into that, but as I say in the letter, there are already 19 states in the country that have recall elections, and I didn't know until I started researching, but Arkansas already has recall elections for our local officials. So you can recall mayors and county judges and folks like that, which I wasn't aware of, but essentially you just have to get a certain number of petition signatures, which would be spelled out in the law, and if that amount of signatures is met, then it would trigger an election, and the incumbent politician would have a chance to make their case for why they shouldn't be kicked out of office. But there would be probably something like a 3-month campaign to decide whether or not to recall that official. And the reasons that I've kind of worked through are, one, right now we have basically no political remedy for removing a corrupt public official from their office. We have stuff like impeachment, or maybe we could expel a member of our body, but we haven't ever seen that happen that I'm aware of, and just because of the way the legislature works, where everyone knows everyone, and to expel a member or impeach someone, it just seems like that's never something that the bodies are willing to do. So, recall would be, I think, a political remedy for the people in that district to decide. We're not talking about a legal remedy here. We're not trying to say you're guilty of a crime, but the people of that district saying, you violated our trust. You're not who we thought you were. We don't want you to hold the position that we elected you to. And this would give them an ability to recall them from office. And then secondly, we've seen time and again in cases like this, the public official will use their elected office as a bargaining chip in negotiations with the prosecution. So, if they've done something corrupt and they've been caught, then and a lot of times, not just in Arkansas but other states, they'll negotiate and say, well, if you'll drop all the charges or reduce my charges, then I'll resign. And with recall, I think I think this gives a chance for the people to say, well, maybe we don't think you should be able to use your elected office to help you, get out of the crimes you committed.
Wow.
And they could make that decision and recall them from office.
That's a really good point. I've never thought of it that way, about how they do use it as a bargaining chip. I think about Jake.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. As promised, I talked to you yesterday about the Alliance Defending Freedom, and that we're going to have a guest on. So I want you to welcome to the program. We've got attorney Jim Campbell is with us, and Jim serves as the senior counsel with the Alliance Defending Freedom, where he is the director of the Center for Cultural Engagement and Scholarship. Jim, welcome to the program, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Let's talk first about some of these Supreme Court decisions. That's what I wanted to have you on, because you guys are integral to this, standing up for freedom of people who are really just being, persecuted by just an out-of-control, concept of they're limiting religious freedom, they're limiting freedom of speech. Let's start with this case. The Supreme Court handed down the Arlene's Flowers versus the state of Washington. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So let me give you a little background on the case. So Arlene's Flowers is a floral shop in Washington State owned by Baronelle Stutzman. The small little floral shop has been in her family for decades. She's been running it for about the last 40 years or so. She had a longtime customer, a guy named Rob. She knew Rob was in a same-sex relationship, but that never mattered to her. She was happy to serve him for nearly a decade. And eventually he came in one day and asked her to create the flower arrangements to celebrate his upcoming same-sex marriage. That, however, was one thing that she wasn't able to do because of her religious beliefs about marriage. She wasn't able to participate in creating art and going to the event and celebrating that. So she took his hand in hers, and she explained to him very politely that she really had significant regard for him, but this one request was not something she was going to be able to do because of her religion. And so she gave him the name of 3 other florists, and they hugged and they parted, and she thought that was the end of it until very soon thereafter we had the Washington State Attorney General find out about this through some postings on social media, and he filed a lawsuit. And fast forward 5 years later, and we find ourselves at the United States Supreme Court dealing with Baronelle's case. And then the most recent news was earlier this week. The United States Supreme Court granted our request that they hear her case, and instead of deciding to hear it themselves, they granted the request. They wiped out the lower court decision that had ruled against Baronelle, and now they've sent it back down to the Washington State Supreme Court to rule on the case again.
Yeah, and they want the Washington State Supreme Court to rule based on another ruling that came out, which was Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. So do you expect them to, based on the new precedent, do you think they're going to come to a different conclusion?
We're certainly hopeful they will. The new precedent in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, another case that we at Alliance Defending Freedom handled, made it very clear that the government was wrong to punish, in that case, Colorado cake artist Jack Phillips for operating his business consistent with his faith, and he declined to create a custom cake celebrating a same-sex marriage. So we're hopeful that the Washington State Supreme Court will take another look at the Arlene's Flowers case in light of the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, and we'll come to the conclusion that Baronelle, just like Jack, should be free to live and work consistent with her faith.
So we have this really standing up for religious freedom. It's kind of really a basic American concept, but many of these decisions, they're 5-4 decisions. Does that worry you at all, Jim, that we have these 5-4 decisions on something that really, I think, a lot of Americans just thought was a bedrock of religious freedom and freedom of speech?
Well, the Masterpiece Cake Shop decision was actually a 7-2 decision, so that's encouraging. But yes, I do think that there is certainly some concern with how close some of these cases are. I mean, at the end of the day, all people like Jack and Baronelle are asking for is the right to live and work consistent with their beliefs. They're not asking for the right to turn people away just because of who they are. Again, Jack and Baronelle, they serve everyone, including people who identify as gay and lesbian. The issue for them is if they're being asked to create custom art or to help participate in an event that celebrates a view of marriage in conflict with their faith, that's one thing that they can't do. And so when we realize that whole picture, it's very reasonable what they're asking for, and the law should really respect their right to live and work consistent with their beliefs.
Well, so let's kind of go with another topic that we came out with yesterday, which was I guess the Supreme Court came out on the pregnancy health centers. Tell us about that.
Sure. So the case is NIFLA versus Becerra, and it involved a California law. The California law, which was enacted in 2015, essentially required these pro-life pregnancy centers to either post a sign or give out a notice in their own facilities that would tell women where they could get a state-funded abortion. So, of course, let's take a step back. We have organizations that are pro-life, most of which are religious, faith-based in nature, and their whole existence is to encourage women to choose life for their children. And now we have the state coming in and telling them essentially to point the way to an abortion. The Supreme Court looked at that and in a 5-4 decision yesterday said that compelling someone to speak messages against their conscience simply has no place in America.
And that is so encouraging because, but again, it was a 5-4 decision. But you would think, I mean, this is an issue of compelling speech. And so I think we're kind of coming up to dangerous territory here when we're talking about the government is going to compel people to speak about something that they fundamentally disagree with. I mean, don't you agree? Don't you think that's a very dangerous, slippery slope there?
Absolutely. I think it's bad enough when the government tries to tell someone that they can't say something. But in my opinion, it's worse when the government comes in and tells you what you must say, because there's such a close connection, and Justice Kennedy talked about this in his concurring opinion in that NIFLA case yesterday. He said there's such a close connection between your speech and your thoughts and your beliefs that when you infringe in that realm, when you force someone to say something that they don't believe, you're really infringing on the freedom of the mind, and that is something that the government should never do.
I really appreciate you coming on the program. Jim Campbell, Senior Counsel with the Alliance Defending Freedom. Folks, you can find out more. Website here is adflegal.org. Jim, it's great to meet you, sir, and I appreciate you shedding some light on these important topics and the news of the day.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All righty. You have a good day. Folks, we are going to go to break. We'll be back in just a moment.
I think the worst part is when they say, I won't serve gay people. That's just not true. I've never discriminated against anyone in my life. It was a Friday, March 1st, 2013. One of my favorite customers, Rob Ingersoll, walked into the store. Rob's more than a customer, he's a friend. He's been coming in to me for over 9 years for birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. His arrangements were my favorite to design. They were really fun and challenging. We'd bounce different ideas around, and he'd let me be creative and produce something that was unique and special for him. Floral design is an art, and Rob gets that. I knew Rob would be coming in. He had been there the week before when I was out and told the staff that he and his longtime partner, Kurt, were getting married. I knew Rob would want me to create floral designs for their wedding. I love Rob, but I knew I couldn't do this. I'm a devout Christian. My relationship with Jesus Christ is the most important thing in my life. That's where everything I am and everything I have comes from, including my creativity. My faith also teaches me that marriage is a sacred union between a man and a woman. When the staff told me about Rob's visit, my husband and I talked and prayed about it. I would gladly sell him prearranged flowers or loose flowers, but I knew that as much as I love Rob, I could not create something to celebrate an event that was totally against my faith. I didn't want to hurt Rob's feelings, and I wanted to tell him as gently as possible. On that Friday, Rob came back. I took his hand in mine and told him I could not do his wedding because of my relationship with Jesus Christ. Rob said he understood and was very loving. We chatted as we always had. We talked about his mom walking him down the aisle, how we got engaged. Then Rob asked me to recommend another florist, and I recommended 3 that I knew would do him a good job. We hugged each other and Rob left. I was so thankful that Rob had graciously accepted my explanation and that we had parted as friends. Until a few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from Washington State's Attorney General. The government was threatening to sue me unless I designed floral arrangements for same-sex weddings. I was in shock. It didn't seem possible to me that Rob would have filed a complaint, and he hadn't. The Attorney General saw a post Rob's partner had put on social media and decided on his own to threaten me, to take away my livelihood unless I would create art for an event I didn't believe in. But I could never do that. I can't use the gift God gave me to violate my relationship with him. So the government and the ACLU sued my business and me personally for discrimination. My lawyers and I have been battling this case in court for 4 years. My case is simple. Will I serve gay customers? Yes, I serve Rob joyfully for over 9 years and would welcome him back to my shop even now. Will I hire gay employees? Yes, and I have. Will I let the government force me to create art expressing things I don't believe in? No, and that's my right. That's every American's First Amendment right. What does freedom of expression mean if the government tells me how to express my art? What does freedom of religion mean if the government tells me I can't live out my relationship with Jesus Christ? If I lose in court, I will likely lose everything. The penalties and attorney's fees could be well over $1 million. My business would be gone. My husband and I would lose our home and our retirement. But I have faith. God gave me a gift. And I just want to continue serving him by using that gift to bring beauty and joy into people's lives. Rob and Kurt had the freedom to live their lives according to their beliefs. Should I not have that same right too?
That is video of the Alliance Defending Freedom. We were just interviewing Mr. Jim Campbell, the senior counsel there, and I wanted to play that video for you because of the Alliance Defending Freedom and because of the Supreme Court decision referring the case Arlene's Flowers versus the state of Washington back to the Washington lower court, the state of Washington's lower court. Now they have to take into consideration the Colorado case with the cake maker and take into consideration that precedent when, I guess, re-adjudicating Arlene's Flowers versus the state of Washington. It is incredible. It does look like it appears that she's going to be able to continue to use the gift that God gave her and express herself artistically in a way that is free. The Supreme Court of the United States appears to be reaffirming God-given rights the left has pretended for years do not exist, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I am getting from the last couple of weeks. And Neil Gorsuch on the court is certainly helping. And the optics, if you're a leftist, is one of really just chaos. The media is going to fan the flames here because Justice Anthony Kennedy has now retired, and there's a chance that the court is going to be reshaped for decades to come and going to be more of a conservative court now. I look for the media to continue to fan the flames. I look for them to continue to apologize for statements like from Maxine Waters encouraging mob-like, riot-like mentality when you see somebody you disagree with who has an opposing political view. And I look for those fans to create more of a fire, and I think it could lead to more violence. Think about this, folks. Why was Congressman Steve Scalise shot and almost murdered? Okay? It was because of people saying that Donald Trump is, going to usher in some sort of, new totalitarian regime, and the media's fanning the flames. And now that Donald Trump's going to have another Supreme Court justice, now that he may have a third when Ruth Bader Ginsburg decides to retire, or I don't know what's going to happen to her. But you understand that if you're a leftist and you see these 5-4 decisions, or you see the 7-2 decision that Jim Campbell was talking about when it came to the Colorado cake baker, and the clear religious discrimination that's been going on, these people now, they just had a rough week. I think I'm kind of predicting on the Sunday talk shows what you're going to hear over and over again is how the Democrats, the liberals, the progressives had a very, very bad, no good week. We're going to take a break. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we've got Arkansas Politico young conservative Ken Yang. Looking forward to talking with him again. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
This is Mother Government. I come to the people of Arkansas with an important announcement. In disloyal circles, some are questioning the scope and size of government and telling the people government programs should not waste the labors of the people under the guise of taking care of them. This is a thought I must correct. People of Arkansas, you should not believe everything you hear unless it comes from a government source. Let me, Mother Government, set the record straight. You know you can trust me. After all, would your own mother lie to you? You should know the brand new, terrific program known as Arkansas Works has nothing to do with the old, bad program known as the Obamacare private option. Arkansas Works is good. People who say otherwise are bad and are seeking to undermine my collective vision for progress. If these groups continue in their criticism, then you should question their party loyalty. Tell them to quit focusing on this single issue. And then remind them Mother Government says the future of Arkansas depends on this single issue. In my next address, I will discuss the need to prepare your fellow citizens for the next round of revenue gathering that will be needed to continue funding my motherly goals. This message was brought to you by our partner, Aristocrats, serving Arkansas. Thank you for listening, and remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Amy on Facebook.com/Conduit News writes, the left hates the concept of individual freedom because individual freedom is diametrically opposed to their narrative of collectivism. That's exactly right. If they promote individualism, then people are harder to control because people are different. and they have different ideas, they have different likes, they have different thoughts, and that's what makes America great. It really is. I want to talk real quick. I didn't get to spend as much time on this. I mentioned at the top of the hour, but Attorney General Leslie Rutledge has launched a special investigations in her special investigations department, she is now forming a public integrity division, which will investigate, essentially, I think, allegations of corruption. I think this is a good thing. I think legislators need to refer, if they know somebody's doing something. I mean, I know the Senate is talking about their ethics rules, and there's some good in there, and there's some not good enough, and it's relying a lot of them to tattle on each other. You need to go tattle to the Attorney General and ask her to start an investigation on some of these people. I mean, you know, you have the Ethics Commission, anything. Why haven't they been, telling the Ethics Commission some of this stuff, the stuff everybody knew on John Woods or Jake Files or, let's see, Jeremy Hutchinson, who hasn't been indicted? I don't know. I mean, it may be the fact that the governor and his, people, they appoint the attorneys on the Ethics Commission, and so that's very political. Arkansas Business reports that Rutledge says the investigators will also be part of a state and federal corruption task force. The division's creation follows a series of indictments and convictions that have included one former senator being convicted in a kickback scheme involving a small college and another pleading guilty to pocketing thousands in state funds intended for a sports complex construction. So Senator Woods, Senator Files, but don't forget State Representative Micah Neal. He pled guilty. Don't forget that the college president of Ecclesia, Orrin Parrish, pled guilty. Don't forget that Randall Shelton, the lobbyist involved, was found guilty. Don't forget that Hank Wilkins with Preferred Family Healthcare has pled guilty. Don't forget that Eddie Cooper has pled guilty. Don't forget that we have the New Jersey lobbyist connected with all of this in Missouri and Arkansas and New Jersey and these federal Medicaid dollars. He pled guilty. Don't forget that Rusty Cranford, who has also pled guilty, tried to have, according to the FBI, the New Jersey lobbyist murdered, and they have him on tape trying to do a murder for hire plot because he had pled guilty back in December. Don't forget about all of that either. See, everything that I just said, including the murder for hire plot, any Arkansas news outlet that talks about corruption and somebody trying to do something about it, you need to tell the whole story with respect. You need to have a stock paragraph, a stencil, if you will, to put at the end of any article talking about somebody trying to stop public corruption so that the people realize just how bad it is. That we are talking about multiple senators, and we still may have more to come, right? Maybe you also put in there, oh, and by the way, the Hank Wilkins plea mentions Senator A, which we now know to be Jeremy Hutchinson, and then the Rusty Cranford plea, which links the Preferred Family Healthcare and, by the way, all of this GIF stuff, because Rusty Cranford was involved in giving the AmeriWorks program GIF money, but then they took it back because they knew they were under federal investigation. He alleges that he paid Jeremy Hutchinson, the governor's nephew, $500,000 in bribes. All of these things need to be mentioned when you're talking, if you're writing an article about public corruption, whether you're the Arkansas Business or whether you are Talk Business and Politics or whether you are the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. The Gazette does try to summarize. I'm sure they're getting tired of it. I don't think they summarize as much as they need to. They don't, but they do give you a little bit more of the backstory. Anytime there's an update, about midway through the article, they inform you so-and-so was convicted of this, and then this guy was convicted of taking bribes here, and it's kind of exhausting. I'm sure you guys are getting tired of writing the summaries, but you don't need to give up. You need to tell the whole story at the end of every one of your articles, updating on the newest thing, so that you catch your readers up, so that they realize this is not isolated. This is a cancer that is in the Marble Palace, and the lobbyists and the senators and the reps that attend court at the Marble Palace, everybody knows about this, And more of them, I think, are going to be implicated in this. The Arkansas Times reported that 20-plus legislators have submitted, I think, what they're called proffers to the FBI, saying what they would be willing to testify in court about. This is not some isolated, a few legislators here and there. No, this is a culture of corruption. Files, for example. I think about how all of the reports about what he had done, falsifying the bids for other companies so that he could get the lowest bid and get the general improvement. I mean, we knew about that a full 12 months before he pled guilty. And so, I mean, if you just take that example, Grant, I mean, if the people of Fort Smith would have had the ability to recall him, I think they would have gotten the signatures immediately. I mean, the stuff that was out about him, and then when you had the sworn FBI affidavit, you had that, I think, 6 months before. And I'm just round figures, but I mean, that was an FBI that was an affidavit by an FBI agent under penalty of perjury, accusing him of crimes, and the very crimes that he pled guilty to months later. So, I think you're onto something here, Grant Hodges. I don't know if you're going to be a big hit at the next, caucus meeting, but I think you're onto something.
Yeah, well, that's never my priority, but I agree with you, and a lot of these cases we've seen, it does seem to come to a head later in the term, but, you could have a situation where, take a senator who's elected to a 4-year term, something like this could pop up in their first year, and really there's nothing the voters could do for another, 3.5, 4 years. So, I think it gives us just another tool to hold people accountable, and we'll see how other people react. But, one other thing, and this isn't in my letter, but it came up as I've been looking into this more, is I don't know if anyone's talked about if you're convicted of something while you're holding public office, then I don't think you should be able to keep your state pension either. I don't know if that's something you've heard, but I think we should look at that as well. If you're convicted of crimes while holding your public office, then you forfeit your state retirement, state pension.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I have heard that. I think that makes complete sense. You've betrayed the trust of the people. Why should the people be obligated to fund anything you do in the future? And that's a really good thing to do. So just real quick, what's the, because I had sources that said that the House was putting together a letter. I haven't seen that letter. That is, kind of a unified statement about the state of Arkansas corruption and the stuff we're seeing in the headlines. I guess that's been put on hold or what. I mean, you have this letter, but was there, talks going on between you guys about maybe putting out a joint statement? And if so, where is it, or is it dead? Is it not going to happen?
Well, I know the Republican House Caucus had a statement they were going to release. My understanding was that was going to go out earlier this week. So if it hasn't, then I don't know where that is.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. It's now time for our Conservative Future segment. We like to highlight, who are the young conservatives out there? What can we expect moving forward, the future leaders? One of those is definitely Mr. Ken Yang. He joins us. Welcome back to the program, Ken.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've been on.
It's been too long.
Well, and it's nice that, obviously 30 is still young, but I'm still 29. I got like 1 month left of being 29.
Nice. So. I consider that young. Yeah, definitely, Ken. So real quick, just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, we're not here really to talk about the Family Council, but you do still work for the Family Council, and you do work for them, do great work over there. That organization does, and you do as well.
Yes, I still work for them. But on the side, I do political consulting, work the campaigns, poke my nose into policy debates every now and then. And
nice.
I've worked for 3 presidential candidates, Governor Romney, Speaker Gingrich, and Governor Kasich, and just done a lot of stuff politically, and just try to keep my feet in the water.
Well, I wanted to have you on to really just talk about some of the issues that you feel are relevant moving forward, whether in the state or whether nationally. I have a feeling you do have an opinion on what's been going on with the immigration debates in the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, I think I posted on Facebook about my own family, about legal immigration. I've talked about how illegal immigrants cheapen what my parents did, what my family's done to immigrate here. And, some liberals said, "Oh, how do you reach your keyboard from your high horse?" And I'm thinking, okay, well, tell me how fleeing communist China and then standing in line to come to America, doing the right way, getting a work visa, applying for a green card, not using your children as pawns is somehow high horse. And of course, the liberal didn't answer because that's just usually how it is. They just throw insults. And so, I tell when I go speak to groups, I always tell people, I said, hey, don't be afraid to speak about immigration. You're not racist for supporting legal immigration. And that's the narrative the left wants to tell people that, oh, we're racist, you don't have compassion, all this other. There are over 4 million people each year trying to do it legally, while hundreds of thousands, and now, they equal millions in the U.S., they just come over the border. And it's not okay, and it's not right. It's not right for the people like my parents who, like I said, fled communist China, came to the U.S. from Taiwan. They came here. They started a business. They learned English, and they became American citizens. That's the American dream. That's the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So what are we? I mean, when it comes to illegal immigration, obviously that has to be stopped. But have you followed any of what Senator Tom Cotton has proposed in terms of reforming our legal immigration system at our ports of entry, and essentially moving more towards a skill set that you're going to have to prove that you have certain merit or skills in order to get in the country?
I have, and I am to be honest, I am a bit skeptical of the government determining merit. I think that's a slippery slope when the government starts determining what's okay and what's not okay, in this case merit. And so I'm thinking to my dad and his skill set. One, he doesn't know English. One, he came here to he first started off just being in the kitchen washing dishes, being a line cook. And so my question is, well, what about the lower level people that want to get up to that trajectory of being living the American dream? I think I would want to make sure to not forget about those people who, you don't need to come in as a doctor or have some fantastic skill set, because that's what makes our country great. That someone with nothing can come, and 10 years from now they can have everything.
Yeah, that is a really good point. We still have. The concept of the American dream is still. That you can, rise and actually be mobile and even fluid in, socioeconomic, rankings and that sort of thing. Did you follow the travel ban, though? In terms of setting our immigration policy, it is true that, and the left doesn't like this, we get to decide who comes here. As Americans, that's what our politicians get to do. And the Supreme Court upholding Trump's travel ban on 7 countries. Of course, they call it a Muslim ban. And again, like what you said, Ken, if you somehow support a legal immigration system and being able to make these decisions, then you're somehow racist.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, look at how wonderful England and France and Belgium are with their come on in policy. Well, wait a minute. I'm sorry. They've had multiple terrorist attacks from extremist Muslim terrorists. And so there's no way to screen all these people. And, there's this database. I'm sorry. I didn't know our database included every citizen of Syria. And it doesn't. And so there's no way to screen all these people. And if they are families seeking asylum, there is a process for seeking asylum in the United States. And you go through that process like everyone else does when they're seeking asylum, when they're seeking refugee status. And the U.S. and the government will determine if you're safe, because as an American citizen, I want my government to protect me and make sure that my family's safe from people that's wanting to do the nation harm.
What about kind of back to the Mexican border thing? What about the kids? I mean, with the demagoguery. I mean, the media. Can you believe that the media was making a big deal out of a policy that's been around for a long time?
It's just ridiculous how far the liberal media has slipped. The Time magazine paper, even the dad of that daughter said, "Why are you using my daughter? That's not the real story." And even Senator Cotton had mentioned many of these people crossing the border holding a child. That's not even their child. They just have a minor and just using it as a pawn. And so I go back to what I said earlier, is that I am very glad. But also, my dad and my mom would have never used their children as pawns to try to get into the country, and then also to use their children knowing that they may be separated from them. They would have never done that. And I think that speaks volumes of the parents that my mom and dad are. And you can make your own determination of what kind of parents would use their children as pawns.
Yeah. And you're raising a great issue, and a lot of people don't want to they don't want to even go there, Ken. But I'm glad that you did.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like with the Dreamer situation, and the idea of being deported and separating your family. And I would ask that same question, but the reverse. If you're going to be deported, but your kid gets to stay, what kind of parent would not take their child with them back to wherever they go? I mean, why would you want to abandon your kids?
Yep. Yes. I mean, it's my dad consistently talks about how, when his dad, my grandfather, took his family to flee communist China, that most people didn't flee with their family. Most people, it was every man for himself. And he always talks about how he was blessed to have parents that took their kids and his spouse with them when they fled communist China, because most of the time that didn't happen, and that's kind of the way of life that my dad grew up in, is protecting your family, and it's like you said, it's a point that people don't want to talk about and makes them uneasy, but it's just fact. What type of parents uses their children as pawns? And then that's all we need to leave it at, because it's just disgusting.
Yeah. Hey, does your dad, I'm sure he does he have a great appreciation for capitalism? You say, fleeing communist China, and he gets to come and open a successful small business here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he definitely, and he they own the restaurant now. When they first got the restaurant, they had a landlord. No offense to landlords or anything like that. It was cumbersome to report to someone, and he saved up enough money where in the mid-90s he got to build his own restaurant, and he's had, they've had it ever since. And so, it's the freedom to do what you want, serve who you want, and he wouldn't have it any other way.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Hey, I got another question on the immigration thing, and then we can go somewhere else. So I think it was last year or earlier in the year. You remember, Donald Trump essentially was willing to take care of the Dreamer situation, and basically, the people on the right, it was an amnesty, and he gave the Democrats everything that they were wanting, and obviously he wanted to build the wall and everything else. And the Democrats said no. And I remember thinking to myself, as disappointed as I was as somebody on the right that's like, hey, we need to reward this. It still is an issue. Okay, there are kids out there that are just kind of in limbo. And I thought, my analysis was, it seems that the Democrat Party would rather these children or stay victims so that they're able to use them for political capital rather than actually solve the problem and make their lives better.
Yeah. Twofold. One, it's frustrating that Republicans support breaking the law and support bad immigration policy just because they don't want to be demonized or called bigots or whatever. Have a backbone. Stand for legal immigration. That's what the Republican Party does. Second, these Democrats, they just want people to be victims so that they can put it in a campaign ad and try to get reelected. And this is what they're the ones that are always putting down our country. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and those people always putting down our country. The fact that we're having this conversation about all these illegal immigrants coming over, about all these children still here, is proof that we are still the greatest country in the world. And it shouldn't even be a question. I mean, we are the greatest country in the world. But it's proof that we're the greatest country in the world because these people are flocking here because they want to live the American dream. They want that. And, it's fine to come up with a compassionate immigration policy, whether it's years on a list, some fine, some pathway to eventually some pathway to citizenship, but you just don't hand them a citizenship, but having them stand in line like everyone else does, there's nothing wrong with that. But the Democrats, they don't want to help people. They want to use people to help themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You are certainly right on the money there. We're talking with Ken Yang. He is a young conservative, 29 years old for a little bit longer, in Arkansas Politico. Hey, Ken, do you have any other issues that are kind of on your mind that you've been wanting to discuss? I mean, you feel free to go anywhere. I'm just curious, just trying to pick your brain here.
Before I came on the show, I talked to quite a few young conservatives, Republicans, and we kind of all agree. I know we live in the Bible Belt, and there are a lot of issues, like you said, immigration, LGBT, pro-life issues. But in my generation, you have people that are still not married, like myself, and people that are married. And I think a lot of the focus is economic. Am I going to start making more money? Do I have a good-paying job? Are my children going to have a good-paying job? Why are taxes so high? And I think when you talk to the just regular, off-the-street conservative millennial, they're more worried about economics. They're more worried about, in this case, their path towards the American dream. And that does weigh on my mind. I know, we don't agree on everything when it comes to, you and I don't agree on everything when it comes to Republican politics. But I think one thing that we can agree on is especially here in Arkansas, why are we studying bad tax policy? It's like studying something that you don't need to study.
You mean like the earned income tax credit?
Yes. I mean, and the thing is, people say, oh, well, so-and-so think tank said it would be better than lowering the grocery tax. I'd rather listen to the Smith family down the street who says, I need that extra income month to month, Ken, to support my family. I don't need just one big amount come April or February or whenever they turn in their taxes early in the year. And I prefer to listen to the people on the street that will tell you. And the idea, look, honestly, if we don't even talk about the grocery tax, the idea of the government taxing food is absolutely ridiculous in itself. That's like taxing air.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you need food to survive. Why is the government taxing something that is affecting my livelihood and the family's livelihood? And so, my thing is, I think young people want to earn a bigger income. They want to have good-paying jobs. They want to support their family because, as you know, many young people aren't getting married. And it's not that I support young people not getting married, but, you get married, that's another person. You have children, that's another person. You have to be ready. Back in the day, you could support a family on one income. That's no longer the case anymore. And so young people are wondering, how do I support myself, first of all? Two, if I get married, how do I support my spouse, my wife, and then my kids? And with the way the economy is going, I mean, President Trump's doing a great job with more jobs, the largest tax cut in history. But here in Arkansas, we got to start thinking about, where do we cut government and promote an environment where more people can be successful. And raising taxes is not that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hey, Ken, it's been great having you on, and I noticed you said that, you're not married yet. So, ladies, if you listen to this interview, he's an eligible bachelor. You can look him up on Facebook. His name is Ken Yang. You spell it Kenyang. Hey, Ken, I appreciate you coming on, sir.
I appreciate it, Paul. I'll be glad to be on.
Let me know if that works, by the way. Let me know. Okay.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
All right, folks, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, Loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Are checking in now with the petition drive to get the term limits on the ballot. We're checking in with Tim Jacob. Tim is back on the line. Tim, sorry we missed each other yesterday.
That's quite all right, Paul. I'm just glad to be back on the Liberty machine.
Hey, I appreciate that. So tell us, how are things going? You guys are in the final push to get enough signatures to get this thing on the ballot.
Yes, we are. We've got people working around the state, but we just need more people, more folks that are interested in restoring real term limits to this state and to the legislature. We have some folks out in Mountain View today from 10 to 8 at the Pizza Inn there, and just come by, sign our petition. We have people out at American Tiger Firearms in Maumelle. That's 9207 Maumelle Boulevard in North Little Rock. If you want a petition, it's just a little bit too late to mail it to you, but still call 501-590-8260. Leave your email address, and we'll email you a petition. And you can always go to the website, arkansastermlimits.org, and download your own petition. Please get some signatures, get it notarized, and get it back to us pronto.
So that's, I would say at this point, that because when's the deadline? When is this thing? When
we are going to be turning in next Friday morning, but we really have to count on July 4th and July 5th, make sure everything's in order. So we really have to have them back by next Tuesday.
All right, so if you want to get behind this, I think the best way, folks, at this point, you heard him say it's a little bit late to mail, so arkansastermlimits.org, arkansastermlimits.org, you just click that button on the right that says download the petition, and then you'll have to print it off, and then you take it away, take it around to your friends and family. And that's a really, really positive thing. This weekend, especially when the 4th of July activities kind of start to, gin up this weekend, and you're going to be around people at barbecues and stuff, it'd be a great opportunity to do that. And Tim, I appreciate it. We've only got about a minute left. I just want, one more time, I want you to address, why this is needed. I know there's a lot of people who are upset that this is potentially going to go back on the ballot, but at this point, I think it's a good remedy for where we are as a state. Go ahead, Tim. Last word.
Yeah, the few people that are upset are working down at the Capitol, and the rest of us wonder why we have our term limits watered down, and it's because the legislators did not trust the will of the voters. It's important. It's something everyone can do, and we want to make sure that voters are respected, and what they did in 2014 cannot stand. We need to get it back on the ballot. Let's have a fair vote with an honest ballot title. That's what we need. Please call us at 501-590-8260.
All right, that's 501-590-8260. Tim Jacob, we appreciate you being on the program. We'll talk to you again, okay?
Always appreciate you, Paul.
Yes, sir. Folks, hey, tomorrow is Johnny Cash Friday. Get your requests in. What do you want to hear? When do you want to hear it? Johnny Cash Friday. You can text me your requests, 870-275-9799. That is all the time we have for today. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the talk radio lineup on your local affiliate, Arkansas. Be safe.